section that has to be read, please? I'm getting too tired.
I'd be happy to. Irene, would you be so kind as to put that on our screen, please?
Yes. Let's see. So it's, be able to see that okay?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Just a quick note before we get started, and I hand it back over to Chair Cruz. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provision of the Governor's Executive Order N-2920, which suspended certain requirements of the Brown Act. In order to minimize the spread of the COVID-19 virus, please do the following. Attendees may join the meeting through the use of Zoom at https://bit.ly/2WUOGJE. Although, to be quite honest, if you navigate to the Cloverdale website and find the agenda for the school city subcommittee, clicking the link is much easier than trying to transpose what I said there. Attendees will be muted until they are called upon for public comment. To make a public comment, use the raised hand icon on your smart device or desktop computer, or dial *9 if you are using just your telephone. Please listen carefully for the chair or city clerk to address you by name or phone number, and for the audible Zoom notification that you have been unmuted. Once you begin your public comment, your 3 minutes will begin. And you may have noticed Irene puts a thing up on Google, lets you know where you're at. If you would prefer to submit public comment in writing, please email your comments to iwerby@ci.cloverdale.ca.us. Again, very easily navigatable from the agenda located on the Cloverdale website. If you are commenting on a specific agenda item or items, please state the agenda item number in the subject line of the email. All comments received via email will be provided to the subcommittee in writing and included as part of the record of the meeting. The City of Cloverdale thanks you in advance for taking all precautions to prevent the spreading of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going back to the top of the agenda. The meeting has been called to order. Is there any particular communication that we need to share today?
No communications have been received through my end.
And to make sure that we know who's here, we have David Kelly, City Manager, Jason Turner, Jason Ferguson, Chief of Police, Kevin Thompson, Preston, Sue Dahl, and Todd Lance. And the superintendent is not with us today. She will be in the next meeting. Okay. Now I would like to open to public comment. Any member of the public may connect on any item not on this agenda, may comment. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Members of the public may comment on items on the agenda when the subcommittee considers that item. Any public comments, Irene?
No comments at this time, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I need a move to approve minute meetings.
A motion to approve, Chair.
I'll second.
Thank
Todd.
you.
Okay.
We're ready to roll call. Okay, so we need to vote on that. Is this to be approved? Please, yay or nay?
Yes, from me.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. I vote yes, and I didn't hear Preston. That we have enough.
I haven't finished reviewing them yet, so I'm not going to vote yay or nay.
Okay, all right, so you abstain for today. Thank you, but I think we have enough votes to pass that. All right, then, please, Kevin, could you tell us about the student liaison application and what's going on there?
I don't have an update. I don't know, Irene, did we have the The application period is open now.
Kevin, I can jump in on this one.
It's supposed to be.
Madam Chair, this was
Yeah.
agendized, technically your request to address the increase in the scholarship amount from $500 to $750. Yeah, I think it was based on your discussion with Kiwanis, and they indicated that they would be able to fund a total of $500 per student, with the remainder being funded by Roycer, which would make a grant amount of, or a scholarship amount total of $750 per student. The committee did previously review the application packet and approved it with some minor changes to be published, reflecting a scholarship amount of $500. And that's consistent with the resolution that council adopted that corresponds and sets forth the program. And given the hard work that Chair Cruz made to secure additional funding for the scholarship program, it needs the approval and recommendation of the Joint City School Subcommittee, and ultimately staff will need to bring forward a budget amendment to increase the budget to support the additional amount, as well as we'll need to bring forward an updated resolution for council's approval, increasing the scholarship amount from $500 to $750.
Okay, so we need a motion to vote on approving this. We have a letter confirming from the scholarship committee in Kiwanis for the $1,000 this year and next year. They cannot guarantee anything more at this point, given the situation with COVID, but they foresee that this would be a priority on their program. So I think the motion would be to vote on this for this current year and for next year, and pending on future funding allocation from Kiwanis. Would that be the appropriate terminology and verbiage, David?
Madam Chair, that's certainly appropriate. The resolution obviously would go to council would reflect the increased dollar amount for the scholarship, which then would be the basis for the application.
Okay.
So with the recommendation of the subcommittee, staff would bring forward the revised resolution reflecting the increased scholarship amount, and as well as, because we budgeted, the city budgeted $1,000 total for the program. Under this scenario, it's $1,500. So we would need to increase our appropriations amount for $1,500, but likewise increase the revenue from the two event sponsors, which is Kiwanis and Roycer. The current year, I should give credit to Mr. Thompson, because we only had $1,000 in the budget, and the decision to increase the scholarship was made, ad hoc. The Roycers were kind enough to just cut a check of $250 directly to each of the students to give them a $750 scholarship. So it'd be kind of a 1 year change, and then if this subcommittee in the future wanted to reduce the scholarship back down to $500, we would have to change the resolution.
Okay, so somebody's going to move that item.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Vote. Irene?
We have School Board Member Addison,
Aye.
School Board Member Lands,
Aye.
Vice Chair Turner,
Aye.
and Chair Cruz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Has there been any requests for scholarship paperwork from any students as of yet? Irene?
I'm not aware of any scholarship applications that have been submitted to date.
No.
Okay, so we're gonna need to ask Todd and Preston, how can you assist us in promoting this particular opportunity among students as it stands today? And it will probably be easier because it will be virtual meeting for a bit, at least next couple months or so. Or
The
more.
full application should be forwarded to the high school principal,
Okay,
which is Meredith C at cusd.org. And he can see probably through his counseling department that it gets disseminated.
okay. So we still need to clean it up, or it's already done, David?
Because it require, well, based on the subcommittee's approval of the funding application previously, it was, was published with the $500 scholarship amount.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, because the resolution that the council adopted sets the amount, we would need to bring it forward for council approval to update the resolution. But I know time is of the essence, so we could update it, but it would be done so without the requisite resolution number approving the increased scholarship.
But
So
that would be, we have a meeting this week, so that would be for the next one. We could advance it to the next one, David?
Absolutely, we could bring it forward
Okay.
to meeting in August. Yeah, and
Okay.
we could probably, what we could do just to ensure that the application gets out timely is note that scholarship is proposed to be increased by to a total of $750, so we can, any students that may look at it understand that it's under review.
Okay, that sounds like good language proposed. All
It's
right.
certainly attractive at $750.
Yes, I think so. Okay, so I wanted to make an announcement that, March 29th, I was able to come together with some funds to celebrate Cesar Chavez Day and also Cesar Chavez Day of Community Service. Since we couldn't have this event, the funding that was received has been redirected by the county and by donors to an education program regarding house gardens, which took place on Friday. And Kevin was there. Thank you very much for assisting and for taking pictures. There were 160 bags distributed. So that's 160 cars that came by by the garden center on Friday. And some of the garden kits that were left over, they were picked up by other people and distributed to members of the community who indicated on Facebook that they didn't get a chance to get some. So this is, with the spirit of Cesar Chavez. And then all the bags were filled with dirt by students on Wednesday. We had about maybe 12 students. And because it was a large place at the garden center, they were able to shovel some of the dirt into the bags. And so that constituted day of service. And which is being recognized by the main donor, which is the County of Sonoma. And so what's left is some funds to give to students who graduated from high school whose parents are working in the fields. And so the scholarships are going to be between $200 to $300 per person.
I'm just curious briefly if where this is on the agenda.
This is part, it's at the bottom of the agenda. I just moved it up because it relates to scholarship. So my request to the subcommittee members is, we only have 3 applicants for that. We have only been able to identify 3 students, because they need to have proof that they are registered in classes at the junior college or some other kind of
So just an order question. I
Yes.
don't think we can discuss things that aren't agendized,
It is
especially if they
agendized.
involve something like that.
But it's
I
agendized.
just don't see it on the agenda here that I
Item
have.
7A.
Yes.
I don't have a
Scholarship and-
7A on mine.
Well, this is the latest, and it was
It's on the screen as well.
Yes.
I just resent you the whole packet, Preston. Sorry about that.
So my screen's about 2 inches tall,
Oh,
and I can't, if we're changing the agenda, I can't see it. I have the agenda that was sent and I printed it out, so.
you still have the draft one, I believe. I just resent you the whole packet.
Yeah, the draft is the only one I received until you just sent me this. That's why I couldn't vote on minutes, because I just received them.
Okay.
Did
So,
anybody else have a problem receiving the latest agenda?
I did. I didn't have it. I have the draft agenda only.
yeah. So I'd request we follow the draft agenda, since none of the school members of the committee even have this agenda that I just received.
Well, I did not,
Sorry
I
about
was not aware of that. Consequently, that's why I was following the agenda that was on the screen. So in any event, I will go ahead and close on that comment. And if you have any students you can recommend, I appreciate that. So how different is this updated agenda from the next item, Irene? Could you bring it down, please?
Yes. Let's see. And I do apologize for that.
It's just item 7, I think, that we did not have on our agendas.
But the problem was that you didn't get it on time to read the minutes either.
Well, we didn't get it, which means it wasn't properly posted and all that.
Was it?
I've been raked across the coals about following the posting rules and agenda rules, so that's why I bring this up.
Well,
Right.
thank you, but I trusted that that was done last week. Was
Well,
there a problem there, Irene?
No, and it's online as well, and it was posted physically outside of City Hall.
And it was posted on the 16th, I saw. Was that correct?
And it's on our website as well.
I would just request that in the future we get sent a finalized agenda. Right?
Yes,
I don't
I think that was
come walk
just a
around
faulty.
City Hall and
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I still don't even have one on my email. So even if it was sent late, I don't have that either. I'm sorry.
Okay. So the problem was sending to a couple of the school representatives,
Yes.
but it's been posted according to the rules.
Okay, so I guess my concern is that the school
Did not get
has
it.
not received it in a timely fashion.
Okay. We'll make sure that doesn't happen again.
Agreed.
So Irene, could you put the agenda back up?
Madam Chair, if I can, just to clarify, I think what occurred was there was a draft agenda that was distributed, and it was subsequently finalized. The final agenda was posted online. I'm looking at my online version. I did get an email setting the meeting date and time, but not including with that was not the final agenda packet. But it was properly posted in accordance with the Brown Act. It just wasn't sent via email to the members of the subcommittee in final form. I just want to be clear. So I think we met compliance with the Brown Act, but the members of the committee didn't receive the final agenda packet.
That's what it appears. And so I'm putting on the screen right now the original draft agenda, so we can all ensure this is what the latest was received.
Okay, so now you have the floor, either Preston or Todd, to talk about reopening of schools.
I can mention it briefly. What we're being told to do changes literally daily. We had a change in requirements come through today after several changes from the governor last week. So we are at the mercy of the governor and the county health officer. And we, right now, according to Newsom's office, schools are closed for in-person learning. I find it highly unlikely that the county is going to be out of the current watch list by the time school starts. So as far as we know currently, we are going to be starting with distance learning. We also had an update today. Canceling fall sports, they've consolidated them. So it looks like there's no sports practices or anything until December 14th at the earliest. And they'll be consolidating them into 2 seasons. They're calling it fall and spring season. Fall season runs roughly from December 14th until late March, and spring season runs from then until June. So currently at a state level, sports has been shut down and schools are closed to students. So beyond that, it's really, really frustrating for us because honestly, they change the rules and the requirements for us daily. So anytime we try to put a plan in place, the rules get changed on us. And I know you guys as a city have probably experienced this more over your 10 years than we have, with the state changing rules and funding and things like that. So currently, you can expect the school year to start with distance learning unless the county health officer and/or Newsom change things.
And I have a question for the school. Is there going to be, could you share with us what is the protocol you're going to follow regarding distance learning and relations with students and teachers and parents?
Do you have specific questions or?
No, I mean, it's like specific questions. How is the school going to follow up with parents, students, and parents?
So that is, I mean, we use the same normal means that we always use. We use email if it's a problem contacting students. We use the phone, and there may be even personal contact if needed. I know when they were trying to get Wi-Fi spots out earlier in the year, we sent 2 employees who are native Spanish speakers out to contact people if there was no other means of contacting them and make sure they were set up. I mean, literally this change, I think it was Thursday that Newsom closed the schools. So our expectations changed on Thursday. So that gave our superintendent not even 2 working days to come up with a plan. Currently, the schools are closed. Our teachers and administrators are not in, they're on leave. They've worked their contract days. So when they return, we will work on a more detailed plan. But typically this month is when the schools are literally almost entirely closed. That said, the superintendent is coming in and working on this. But typically per her contract, she wouldn't be working this month, and she doesn't have much support because all of the other employees, except for some office staff, have the month off. So it's the constant changing natures put us in a very difficult position to write plans. There's not somebody employed to do that right now. So as we get to the end of the month, school's starting in the middle of August, there'll be a little more time for planning. But our faculty doesn't come back until the middle of August, so we can't engage them in any planning until then. It's a very difficult situation to be in.
No, I definitely understand that. Did you, by any chance, before school closed, do a census of any problems with the laptops or iPads that the kids may have? And
There's currently a survey taking place now.
Okay.
And we have at the end of the school year, there were no reported issues, despite many attempts to reach out with basic technology access. There were some, when all three kids are trying to Zoom into class at the same time, there's some bandwidth issues, minor things like that, but there was nobody that didn't have access, except for a couple. It was under 5 students, and those students we were not able to contact at all, both going to their last known address, calling, emailing. We don't know whether they left the county. We have no idea. They and their families aren't there, but the district was able to contact everybody else.
And do you foresee any access problems like hotspots or anything like that? Because,
Absolutely.
Okay. And so
the budget has not been increased, so the district just doesn't have money to provide that to students. We've done a really good job of providing it, and we've done that with some community help, like with Kiwanis. And but one of the things that had been provided at the end of the school year was that the local cable and internet and cell phone companies were providing several months of free internet access to people. That ended at the end of June. So we don't yet know what impact that's going to have. Most of our students have connectivity, but even here at my house, I have connectivity issues. I do not have a camera on my computer. I have one in my office that I can go and use sometimes, but if it's being used by employees for design meetings, I don't have access to it. Yeah. I'm not about to go buy a new $1,000 computer so I can Zoom, and we can't expect the same of our students to be able to necessarily afford that. Obviously, this affects our students that are socioeconomically disadvantaged more than other students. So our most vulnerable students will be affected the most. But there is, we don't know exactly what the answer is going to be, whether cable companies are stepping up, whether the community is going to step up and help.
Well, that's why I mentioned it, Preston and Todd, because I would like to know if perhaps this is going to happen, and when you're closer to knowing, what the situation is and so on, to see what can we do jointly.
The best I can say right now is we will be starting with distance learning. We'll be starting the year that way. Sports are canceled for the remainder of this calendar year. And these free connectivities that were provided via cable companies and cell phone companies have now expired. So we don't yet know the exact fallout from all of that. but there certainly will be some.
Okay. Vice Chair Turner, you have any comments, thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I have one question. I mean, totally understanding the challenge. You may not know, but I've been hearing on the radio since Gavin Newsom made a very grand kind of broad brush statement about the California school systems and what they'd be doing this fall. And there was a lot of talk about entities like Google providing hardware and things of that nature to those in need. Has any of that type of grandstanding kind of made it down to a reality or even a local level to where you've been communicated about it as a concept? Just anything like that?
Not at all.
Okay.
And as far as the basic hardware, I think that part is a non-issue for our district. Our district is way ahead of the curve on that.
Okay.
Before I even came on the board, the decision had been made to go to one-to-one technology plan.
Okay.
So we have all the devices for our students.
It's just getting them connected at this point.
Connectivity is the issue.
And diversity and redundancy. We have some people that are off the Comcast grid. We have some people that have to connect by satellite. I feel you, man.
Absolutely. And it back in the day, the telephone was mandated by the federal government as an essential service. So you had phone lines on 10,000 acre ranches out in the middle of Wyoming.
Yeah.
So everybody had connectivity, but that required action at the federal level. And so that's the sort of thing that's being kicked about with these proposals. But I think that internet access, with as important as it has become, should be taking the place of that phone requirement.
Yeah.
In our FCC requirements, but it hasn't. There's been no action on it.
Right.
So,
I mean, without going off into the weeds, of course, but the internet is no longer a luxury. It is a means of vital information. It is a means of now being able to communicate with schools by the mandate themselves. They've mandated distance learning, yet no mandates on the infrastructure to provide it. So please understand my sympathy with your conundrum that you're in. And I agree with Chair Cruz. If there's anything we can do to partner, I as another member of the council definitely recognize the need for what it is.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And there's definitely going to be, I anticipate, some connectivity issues. Hardware's not going to be our issue, but connectivity will.
And, there might be some organizations that could be reached out to, and even programs. Do you have anybody assigned to kind of foresee those opportunities at the school level?
We're in deficit spending. It's kind of hard to assign somebody to do a completely new job that's come up. And like I said, this is changing day to day. This is everybody's vacation month. So this is all going to be worked on, but we don't really have any answers right now.
We'll keep our eyes and ears open. We have to. We're in so many organizations. We have to, see the possibility of where some sort of assistance can come from. So thank you on that one. Are there any questions?
Survey, Marta?
Huh?
Preston mentioned the survey that we have for all the parents, teachers, and everyone involved.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to kind of add on to that. I just pulled it up. Currently, we have 435 different parents that have responded.
Out of?
I don't know exactly how many. It's probably close to about 1,200, so you're about a third. We have 44% are English language learner program or part of that. So it's pretty evenly matched across for English and Spanish speakers families. Right now, currently, only 2.1% of the people that have put in say that they have connectivity issues or will if we stay with distance learning.
Okay.
So those are exact hard numbers that we have as of this moment.
Thank you very much. And we really need to kind of keep track of that. It will be helpful if maybe you could send us an announcement of the survey, or is it on, it's on the website so that we could send it to individuals and key people who are kind of leaders in the community to push to answer the survey. We're doing the same with the city survey. We need to make sure that people answer it. So I started promoting it. I need to ask Mr. Kelly and Thompson and all the other council members to start putting a big push because it closes at the end of the month. So these two surveys are very important for what's happening right now. Thank you, Todd. I need to open it up to the public if there's any questions or any comments on this particular issue. 5B, Irene, anybody?
There are no hands raised, Chair.
Okay, so I bring it back. Anything else you would like to ask or comment, David, or anybody else?
No comments or questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And so we've covered B and C, and D is not here. So David, please talk to us about 6A, the three-way stop sign, etc.
Okay, well, I'm happy to provide an update on the installation of the three-way stop. And Chief Ferguson is joining us this evening, so he can certainly weigh in. The work was completed by our public works staff to physically install the stop signs, both on the northbound and southbound lanes. There was one existing on North Street. In addition, the striping was placed to accommodate the stop signs. There's still some remaining work to do because of the speed of traffic coming southbound on North Cloverdale Boulevard. Our city engineer determined it was appropriate to install some rumble strips, which are thermoplastic material, which just serves as a kind of detector for cars to encourage them to slow their speed of travel. Those are still on order, and we're still waiting for receipt of those rumble strips. But once those come in, those will be installed. Immediately after installation, of course, there was the flags placed to try to provide a notice to drivers that there was changed conditions ahead. Likewise, our police department did arrange for electronic signboard to notify drivers, because we realized, many folks have been driving that route for a long time. It was a new addition to have a stop sign. And that was placed for, I think, approximately a week, Chief. Concurrently, our police department and our very own chief conducted traffic stops during the week that the stop signs were installed. There was a number, I don't have the numbers, but maybe Chief, you can share with the subcommittee how many people you had to kind of pull over and let them know that there was a stop sign there, but didn't physically ticket them, but notified them that there was a new stop sign, and gave them a warning, unless there was some other type of vehicle violation that may have occurred. But otherwise, those are in place, and I think they're a welcome addition to help slow traffic down in that particular area. And I hope folks are starting to get used to having those stop signs. And we've heard a lot of positive feedback from the community thus far that those stop signs are welcome at that location. I haven't received any negative feedback at all. But Chief, anything you want to add to that?
You covered a lot. I just want to add that we took a lot of preventative measures early on by putting out a nixle in advance of this intersection being, painted and everything else that Public Works was going to do. So we wanted to make sure we were giving everybody as best the opportunity they could to know this was coming. And the purpose of those signboards originally was to protect our Public Works crew who were out there while traffic was moved down to a single lane, to make sure that while that work was going, that they were going to be protected. And then we moved it to stop sign ahead once that work was completed. But David's right. I stood out there or sat out there in a vehicle. I probably made 5 or 6 stops. And my approach, and I think our officer's approach initially was, because it was so brand new, we were using discretion and warning people. Some other things did come up where other citations came out of it, but since the stop sign has been there, I don't have the exact numbers, but I'll tell you that we have issued citations for violators of the stop sign violation, and we have continued to give warnings where it was merited. So, but it is effective overall.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Real quick, if I may, I received one piece of feedback that I want to let everybody know is being rectified currently with our Public Works Department, which was the 2 lanes of traffic coming southbound on the boulevard approach the stop sign. And we're just waiting on the arrow that tells people one of the lanes is specifically for left-hand turns. And there was some feedback about the potential for confusion, and that will completely be rectified. It may even be done already. Mark was hoping the stencil would be in by the end of last week.
I don't have an update on that. So, okay, should we open this to the floor? Are there any other questions or comments?
I would just like to quickly say thank you to Jason and David for making that happen. And know that even somebody like me that knew it was coming ran it once. So I know it's possible. But I thank you guys for getting it done promptly and at least before school started with kids walking across the street.
You know, it's really a good thing because I remember, you know, when I used to live on Grace Court, that would be a pedestrian, a lot of pedestrian activity in the afternoons and in the mornings, and the speed that people were coming down was really something. So yes, that was very necessary. Thank you. Irene, can we open to public comment?
Yes, of course. And no hands are raised at this time, Chair.
Okay, I'll bring it back. Any final comments on this? No? Okay. So is it Kevin who's going to talk about the Memorial Pool season, which I assume is totally closed? Or is it you, David?
Madam Chair, this will be me providing an update. So after a long conversation with the county, they did give us permission to proceed with opening the pool. I had to coordinate very quickly with the YMCA, and they provided what are referred to as, kind of COVID-19 guidelines for operating the pool. What they're proposing to do is have modified hours Wednesday through Sunday, 12 to 7, based on staff availability. They'd like to make the pool by reservation only to ensure that they can support how many and manage how many folks access the pool. The staff is going to, the Y would follow, strict disinfection and cleaning protocols that they use for their other aquatic facilities. There would be signage that would be posted about the health and safety expectations or recommendations. Unfortunately, there would not be locker access provided. It would only be available, the pool deck bathroom would be available. The Y would require face coverings or face masking upon entrance and exit, as well as when walking around the pool. There would be, no equipment that could be brought, and patrons will need to bring their own chairs to sit on the pool deck. Currently, they would say they would only sell day passes and no season swim passes, and that the maximum allowable number of folks that would be allowed to attend or be at the pool at one time would be 25 maximum. So those are what the Y has outlined to me by way of an email that came in Friday. Obviously, it'd be a fairly shortened swim season given the late approval by the county to proceed with opening the pool, and it'd be under kind of strict conditions relative to addressing the protocols for COVID. That's my update, Chair.
Let me ask you, when is it going to open?
Well, I don't have a, I need to confirm with the Y, and then we would get that information out as soon as possible. So, if possible, we'll try to get it open, literally as soon as we can. Given this information came in on Friday, I was out of the office on Friday. I was working.
So do people need to sign some statement of release of responsibility?
That hasn't been something that we've asked. I can certainly pose that question with the Y. The Y, does have considerable experience with managing aquatic programs. You probably know they've managed the aquatic program for the city for a number of years, and
Without COVID.
right. If they feel like that's required, I think there is a general release that is generally agreed to by any participants anyway with respect to a pool. Whether that's sufficient enough to cover liability related to COVID, I don't know, but I would think it's kind of a hold harmless statement that any pool users are agreeing to as part of using the pool.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, Todd or Preston?
How was the update about the solar heating system?
Yeah, that's a great question, Preston. I did ask, and the county is still going through these machinations of trying to bring on a separate contractor. I think it was with the head of if my memory serves me, a C46 license, which I don't think Aztec, who was the originally selected contractor, had that license. But the goal being to bring on the contractor that has that, which I think the indication was they thought Johnson Pools had the appropriate license, and at the time when this originally was put out to bid, I guess many of the pool contractors were significantly busy, and now this is according to the county that they have more time available now, and they're likely to get folks that respond to their bid documents to perform this additional work.
Yeah, and Johnson Pool had stayed out of it with us going directly to the sub to try and save the city and school district and county money. They did it basically as a public service, but then there's these requirements which none of us control that unfortunately it'll increase the cost.
Yeah, I think if I understand correctly, some of the work that the county wanted to have done is beyond the original scope of just So, hopefully, because we do have that written agreement, that kind of set in place our funding contribution, and the additional work that they'd like done is related to, long-term kind of maintenance. We can argue or at least make our case that, we shouldn't bear the cost of that work because it's, part of the county's, really long-term maintenance responsibilities for the pool.
You're
on mute.
That was my last comment.
Could we open up for questions, please? Thank you, David. Any public?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I had a member of the community reach out to me, his daughter, incredibly interested in working at the pool. At the time he sent me the email, I kind of let him know that his guess was as good as mine about it opening, but hearing today that it will, is the best course of action for his daughter to work directly with the YMCA for employment opportunities?
I believe that's the way it works.
Okay.
David?
Yeah. Vice Mayor Turner, you're more than welcome to share my email and I would forward it to Michelle Head at the Y, or otherwise they can apply directly on the Y's website. But I'm more than happy to make that contact if you'd like me to. It's simply is forwarding the email and getting that contact before the staff at the Y, because I do anticipate they are in need of. They're always looking for young folks that can serve as lifeguards.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let me circle back with the parents, because now my recommendation has obviously changed, and I'll let you know if I can take you up on that.
And David, could you also make sure that you put an announcement out, and we could probably send it on Nixle too, in terms of how many positions will become available and the website to apply to,
Okay.
so that it has a broader distribution.
We will, as soon as I hear back from the Y,
Yes.
we can post that up on our Facebook page.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments on that? We'll
No
come back.
comments from the public.
There is?
No comments from
No
the public.
comments. Okay, thank you. And so David and Chief Ferguson, the MOU on school resource officer.
Madam Chair, I think the members of the school board on the Joint City School Subcommittee recommended that we keep this as a standing item. I think where we left this last time was a request by Superintendent Decker to move this forward fairly quickly. Subsequently had it. Oops, lost you there for a second. Conversation with Chief Ferguson and Superintendent Decker had a conversation. I think because of some of the unknowns relative to school starting, what would be the role for the school resource officer. So I think maybe at this time it'd be appropriate for Chief Ferguson to weigh in and offer his perspective on the MOU and its relationship to the function of school starting.
Can I just jump in for one brief moment here?
Yes. Go ahead.
I mean, following the last meeting, with only the chairwoman's dissent, I thought it was the intent of the entire subcommittee to move forward with the MOU. And then if things needed to be changed, well, because we've worked on this a long time and it's something we feel we really need and is of mutual benefit in our community and for our kids. So now we have another month gone on, and I have to say the board feels completely sideswiped. Apparently there's a conversation that was had maybe with Jeremy Decker after that meeting, but he's not an employee, and so none of that. This is a first anybody on the school board has heard of that. So we have just felt like we're hanging here. It's not moving forward. We decided it's moving forward. And we would have assumed, like our other agreements, that if changes need to be made due to the current situation with COVID and or financial reasons, that we would write an MOU. It kind of seems weird to have an MOU to an MOU, but that's what we do with all of our other units. And I've been reading lots of examples where the SROs have become a great resource. Many other districts are writing MOUs to modify their SRO agreement for the coming year to help them with these unprecedented needs that are coming forward. So there was articles in the paper this week about other school districts really being able to utilize their SROs to help them when school's going to be closed. So the board's we kind of feel sideswiped here. Like, what happened? We thought we agreed to do this at our last meeting, and then It's just all of a sudden
Well,
was put aside.
Preston, the situation here is, I did dissent because the council took a position to review and to have a retreat with the police department past the Black Lives Matter and all the other situations. At the time, I was just wanting to have clear definition of the tasks assigned to the SRO. But as of today, and after speaking to our city attorney, we still need to review the policies with the police department that comes under our jurisdiction. And it's not that it's sideswiped, circumstances have changed just because of COVID and because of the social unrest in the country in terms of relations with police departments, etc. And we have.
And I just briefly, I mean, as a school district, our children still are having the problems with drugs and truancy.
Preston,
and that,
as a matter of motion, you need to wait until I provide you. And I wanted David to make a comment on this before we go back to you. So David.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to clarify the direction that was provided by the subcommittee. The MOU has not been formally adopted, at least by the City Council. I can't speak for the school board whether they formally adopted the MOU, but the MOU on our end was still being reviewed. Subsequent to the meeting and at the subcommittee's direction to bring it forward, I asked Chief Ferguson to have a discussion with Superintendent Decker, because I think what he was asking more was an amendment to the MOU, which we don't normally process amendments to an unadopted document. We incorporate any amendments or changes to it, and then you update it accordingly and bring it forward in a updated version, not as what was called as a side letter to an unadopted MOU. And so therefore, I think in subsequent discussion about how to bring it forward, and that's where the conversation occurred between Chief Ferguson and then Superintendent Decker about how this might work given the school year. And that's why it's back here for now for an update and discussion. And with the chief's input about, what's the role of a school resource officer relative to close, school that's not operating. And it sounds like it's an opportunity to reflect some of the thinking and logic that's currently being developed by some of the other school districts and incorporate that into a more holistic MOU that can be considered by both the school board and the city council.
So David, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
It was just mentioned by Council Chair Marta Cruz that the city council discussed this item. When was it discussed? Because I watched the meeting that she brought it up and said that she was the one that didn't want to have this go forward because of the police brutality. I don't remember your wording. I don't want to put something wrong or different in her mouth, but because of the current climate, she was putting a hold on this. And so she just said there was a discussion by the city council. I'd like to know when that was so that we could have our public comment and say in this.
Okay, it's not public. It was not a discussion per se. It was just a comment in relationship to council training on sensitivity and prejudice.
Correct. So you took it on yourself to cancel this, not
to cancel, to review with to mention it to the city attorney. I had a conversation with the city attorney, and he feels that it is correct to look at the specifics of the roles of the SRO, and I think it would be worth bringing it forth to council once all the other issues have been discussed internally as a city council in terms of what is the perception and what are the agreements that we have signed in terms of police departments in the city of Cloverdale. And perhaps you could clarify some of that, David?
I'll also clarify right now, like, I just want to make it clear that the subcommittee made a decision and you single-handedly changed that. Now, to answer the question that you have, the role of a SRO and the reason we want one so bad, it has nothing to do with, like mentioned in the city council meeting, arresting children, and law enforcement duties is the last thing that we want from an SRO. I told you this before, that this is more about them being there for education, counseling, mentoring. It teaches these kids respect for law enforcement, for their understanding of the job. And let me finish, please. Personalizes the role of law enforcement. It realizes that the cops have kids. They have families. They're real people. They're not just a man behind a badge or a robot. They're not your military coming in there to arrest everyone. I spent a lot of time working down in Roseland with our Hispanic population. It almost matches the population that we have in Cloverdale. When I would go to these houses, I guarantee you over 100 times, as soon as I got there or walked in the door, the kids would start screaming that we were going to take their mom or daddy away. That is what we're trying to get rid of. That is what we're trying to overcome. The feeling that the cops are bad and it's being instilled in these children, whether it be culturally, socioeconomically, or because their parents have had run-ins with law enforcement, we want them to realize that we are the safe spot for these kids to be. We want them to realize that if there's something going on in their home, they can come to a police officer that they know, no matter whether he's in uniform, at a football game, at the school, whatever, and they can be safe with that person, that they can stand with that cop or they can stand behind that cop because he's there to help them. It has
Okay,
nothing to do with arresting until they've done something really, really bad. And we really rarely arrest children unless they do something that is deemed very necessary.
okay. Jason Turner, you had a comment?
I did, and then I realized that Chief Ferguson has not given his report yet, so I'll reserve it till after.
Am I up?
I did want Jason Ferguson to speak up. So,
All right,
thank
so
you, Jason Turner.
let me start with answering Preston, because I know you brought it up and mentioned that Jeremy's not employed. At the time that I met with Jeremy, he was still employed, although short time, but he made it very clear that it was one of his goals to get this, done and going before he left. So at the time of this, I just want to clarify, he was employed when we had that meeting, and he is the one who made that clear to me. So there's no question about that. Clearly, one of the things he brought up was the quasi new design of an SRO under the, distance learning process. And this MOU was not created during this. Nobody had any way of knowing this was coming. The MOU that I drafted was designed for your standard garden variety SRO who's on campus, who monitors all the campuses and has a variety of what their expectations were as a police officer, plus the school's expectations. Jeremy brought to my attention an amendment to that, addressing home-to-home contacts and home-to-home checks to ensure kids are complying with school and doing these things. I initially told him I did have concern with what he was describing to me and how that related to an SRO program that we had tried to implement or were going to implement. And that's where that stood. I did address that with him, and the amendment from that point on really didn't go any further. And I will explain that one of the things that came up that kind of detoured this, and I certainly apologize, Preston, because I was under the assumption, and probably wrongfully so, that you would have been notified of our discussion. And it appears that that might not have happened. So I will certainly, for my end, apologize for not making that happen, because I was part of that conversation. But moving forward, I can tell you it's somewhat of a moot point at this moment, because we have an officer who's out, and it's probably going to be out for a little while. And that really hampers our ability to do any type of added SRO type of work. This idea was going to be once I had the staffing I had, but unfortunately I have one out now. So that puts us down. And not capable of carrying out that duty of an SRO under any capacity at this particular point until I get that officer back. Sergeant, sorry.
I would like to, before Jason speaks, I would like to clarify to Todd that we need to remember what David Kelly just mentioned. This has not been approved by the council, nor has it been finished by our attorney. So I could have not single-handled the standby of the SRO situation. That is still a pending matter on our side. David, did you have something to say?
Madam Chair, thank you. And I think your comment's correct. I want to share with a school board member, Addison, that there was no attempt whatsoever to sidetrack the school board's request. In fact, it was immediately following the last meeting that I asked the chief to follow up with the superintendent to address the comments so that we could make sure that we were going to bring forward a MOU that was reflective of the discussion that was occurring. And obviously we want to get it right the first time. And that's when I think subsequent to that, Chief Ferguson and former Superintendent Decker, had a conversation about, what their respective perspectives were on the MOU, because ultimately, really, them two were responsible for negotiating and working out the existing terms of that MOU, and that's kind of where it got left, and obviously, given some change conditions relative to COVID, we haven't been here before. It gives us the opportunity to really take a look at how this program is operated. And then, as you mentioned, Chair Cruz, council had a separate discussion and there were relative to use of force policies. And I think that's where comments were made about the SRO program, but it didn't weigh in on staff's decision or direction that was provided by this subcommittee.
Yeah, and I'll just say, just briefly, obviously the knowledge and information about the discussion with Jeremy, and there was no accusation on my part of it happening after he was an employee. That's completely new knowledge to us as of today. It just feels, as a school district, that we've worked really hard on this. We've said again and again that this is an important area that we feel we could partner with the city on. We realize that there's lots of things that get in the way, like staffing, like COVID. My feeling and the school district's feeling is that we should still work to get an MOU that, just like we had, that meets the needs of us during a normal school year, because it took us 2 years to get to this point. And I would hope that in a year we'll be going back to school as normal and can then rely on that MOU. Obviously, in the interim, we need to modify it, but I feel like we're kind of throwing out years worth of work here based on an assumption that we're never going back to normal school. And I think we are, and I think we need to be prepared for that. And it would be nice to get that in place, as well as work with the city and the police department to find out how we can modify this during these times. But when teachers heard that this had been tabled again, I literally watched teachers throw their head in their hands and say, God, we need help with the vaping. We need help with the marijuana use on campus. We need help with the drug dealing on campus. And without a partner there who works to educate these kids, who's not the same teacher voice and the same principal voice, the deck is stacked against us. And we feel that current social unrest is very important, but has nothing to do with our positive, constructive relationship with our police department. Our police department has been, in our experience, nothing but a positive partner in finding positive solutions to redirecting our kids so that they don't get caught up in the system and instead clean up their act and get an education.
That is not.
And we'd like to continue on that trend because that is our experience as a school district.
And thank you very much, Preston. And that is not undermined at all. There are just different circumstances at this moment. Jason, please, Jason Turner.
Yeah, so I'm going to be careful here. I'm a little disappointed, if I'm 100% honest. We had a discussion at the last subcommittee meeting that this needed to move on to council. If that dialogue with Jeremy happened after that subcommittee meeting, then that report could have been included for the full council to discuss. And it could have been directed back to the subcommittee after giving everybody the opportunity to weigh in. And I just didn't see that happen this time. So this isn't about who or what, it's about a principle that I have that I don't want to see items get bogged down in a subcommittee, and I don't want to see them live there forever, especially now that I've learned things can go to the council and still come back. So my request at this point in time is not to rehash the history, but very clear, bring this to the council on the next agenda that it will fit on and give us a full report, please. Thank you.
Well, Vice Chair, there is the element of what is the policy that the council is going to discuss with the police department. And they're still pending the training that we're supposed to get as council and chief of police.
It is my opinion the school board asked us for a service and that we can alter the details just like they've agreed to be able to alter the details.
Then again, the city attorney has not closed on the agreement. So those are issues that have to be addressed. David, do you have any idea about when is it that we're all going to undergo this training and when this can move on?
Madam Chair, the training I think has been scheduled by our city clerk. If I understand, you're talking about the implicit bias training.
Yes.
And again, just to keep matters separate, you know, the MOU is, you know, is a kind of technically a separate item, an agreement. You know, in its current form, obviously it's reflective, as the chief indicated, conditions that aren't existing today, but as school board member Addison suggested, it could very well be back to normal very quickly. And you know, if council wants to move forward with an MOU, we can certainly bring it forward. Again, I just want to reiterate, and we can certainly review the minutes and the meeting, was that I was going to ask the chief to follow up with Superintendent Decker to address the differences. So we brought forward an agreement that was reflective of their mutual understanding. And because that understanding needed to be memorialized in an agreement, we would have been bringing forward what was otherwise an incomplete MOU. But given what I hear is the direction, we'll bring it forward.
Well, just as
I would like to know if it's possible to get a summary of what were the issues that both Jeremy and Chief Ferguson had concern about, and what was their idea or their conclusion to it. I think that we all need that, you know, Todd, Preston, Jason, and I. as well as you, David. I think we all need to be informed of what took place in that conversation, because we cannot disregard the opinion of the superintendent at the time.
No, and
Well,
I
I
think
would move that, I would say that ultimately it would come to the school board for approval, since we're the superintendent's boss. And the members of the school board on this committee approved of the agreement as it was put forward. And I really think, I really would say, and I would like to hear what Chief Ferguson thinks of this. I really think we've spent years hammering this out. So regardless of COVID, is the agreement that we had hammered out that we thought was going forward a month ago a good agreement? And I know we're always going to have staffing issues, and there has to be some mechanism in there. Obviously, if the department can't staff it, there has to be a valve to allow it out. But we're going to go back to school as normal at some point. That was the direction of this agreement. If we're back in school in October under normal conditions, would that agreement be able to apply? If so, let's move forward and agree to it and approve it as we thought we did last time, with a condition that as long as there's COVID and a disruption, it has to be postponed until we go back to a normal school year, because we will go back to normal in 6 to 12 months. And I hate to just throw out all this work for a temporary situation. And then in the interim, we work on something that can fill the gap in between during COVID, and that's taking into account the realities of staffing. I don't know if the police department has more on their plate in the current situation or not, but I really don't think there's any reason to throw out the agreement that we had all worked out. We should have that in place, in play, to be able to transition right back into. We're doing the same thing for our school planning. We are going to have a distance learning model for when we're shut down by the health department and the governor. We're going to have a hybrid model for when we're allowed to have students back under certain rules for safety. And then we're going to have our normal back to school model. And this agreement falls right in line with normal back to school model. So if we already worked it all out, why not have it in place for when that happens again? It just seems like a ton of work to rewrite something that we hope to be back to. I hope sooner rather than later. I know it's going to be 6 to 12 months. That's realistic, but I just hate to throw out all that work.
This is not going to be thrown out, Preston. Trust that that is not the intention of the city or the chair. However, we do need to entertain unexpected situations as the one that we're living. And I want to make sure that in that agreement, there is language of sensitivity training and use of force, etc. I haven't seen the agreement, so I don't know what it says. Once I see it and read it, then I could, maybe many of my questions will be answered. But that is my position. David?
Well, the last thing I'll say is just that was an agreement that was worked out with the police department and the school district, and an overwhelming majority of the city school subcommittee supported that and voted for it to go forward. So it just seems like if we vote on something and somebody doesn't like it and just can table it, then our time here is kind of wasted.
Well, we need to talk to the attorney, and I don't know
I
if
have
that
a
would
different
be,
view of democracy.
if that would be something that would be advisable, David, to have Jose speak to this subcommittee on any, and how soon can he get to this so that we can approve it on council?
Well, Madam Chair, you know, again, the agreement was revised to reflect what were previously the comments that were made both by Superintendent Decker and Jason Ferguson. And I just want to clarify one point. That's the timeline. I want to give due credit to the chief, because the MOU was the chief's creation. The chief has only been here for about less than 1 year. And so this agreement isn't older than a year. It really, the chief started preparation of this MOU shortly after coming on board, or several months after coming on board. So it's something that is certainly from a timeline perspective is less than a year. But with that said, again, the subcommittee provided direction to amend the agreement through a side letter. And that was the direction that was provided at the last subcommittee. Because we didn't have and don't have an adopted MOU, the direction to the chief from me was to have a discussion with the superintendent on how to revise the MOU to reflect the school district's input. The direction and discussion obviously occurred after the subcommittee based on the subcommittee's direction to staff. I followed the direction of the subcommittee by making sure that the chief had a conversation with the Superintendent Decker. The outcome of that was to come back to this meeting and bring back that conversation. Now, absent that, it would have been brought forward to council, I think, as Vice Mayor Turner suggested, was the direction was to bring it forward based on a side letter to the MOU. But again, just in practice, we don't normally do side letters to MOUs that aren't adopted. So again, that's why we're bringing it. That's why it's here. That's why Chief is here. And, you know, there was a concern about how the MOU would reflect what the school district's needs were in light of COVID. And I think what we're hearing is that there are models, there are kind of best practices out there that we can look to ensure that the MOU can provide for how a school resource officer could operate either in the current, in these conditions of COVID that would survive going forward. And so it's just a little bit of terms of the best practice on how we bring forward that agreement to council. And, you know, I'm, with all due respect to the subcommittee, all due respect to Vice Mayor Turner, I don't usually bring forward incomplete documents for your consideration. I want it to be reflective of the best thinking and best logic. And so, you know, obviously there were also intervening circumstances that suggested, you know, that there was input, that there was additional consideration around these other matters that, you know, reflect on a major policy decision that the council is going to make that we want to be cognizant of, so that we again try to address that up front while we're in this period when school's not back in. So that's kind of, I'm just trying to set the context for why we're here. I don't think there's any bad faith whatsoever. It was a matter of how we bring forward an agreement that reflects it. But I hear a majority of the subcommittee is kind of like, you know, bring it forward and we'll amend it later. And you know, if that's the recommendation, I can do that. It will come in the context, again, given changed conditions with our police department and losing down an officer, and, you know, again, the MOU envisioned a full-time dedicated officer at the police department. It comes in the context of affecting operations in a way that can put the safety and security of our community in a detrimental position where we don't have adequate staffing. So, you know, that was just an added issue, again, that has come upon us as we are working this out. And that's just the unfortunate circumstances we find us in. It's not staff trying to undermine the decision of this subcommittee by any means.
Can I make a quick comment here?
And then again, we don't want to have a problem with technicality or legalities when it comes to voting, because this has happened before and we don't want it to happen again. Jason Turner?
Yeah, just a quick comment here. I might have made myself unclear, which is why I said I was going to try and be careful, but hell, I'm human. It wasn't necessarily my intention to suggest that an incomplete document be brought to the full council, just simply an update. And it could be that I'm misremembering the rules a little bit. But for an important issue like this, that is incredibly a high priority for the school district, and we're running into these hurdles, staffing hurdles, who can anticipate somebody being injured or sick or whatever the case may be? I don't presume to know, but if the chief tells me someone's out, I believe him, someone's out. And with the full council being able to get that update, not to make a decision on, yes, we're going to approve the MOU, but to offer guidance as a council on a recommendation for how to move forward on those challenges, I'd like to believe we have an avenue forward to do that. And if so, that's what I'd like to see happen from here, is to have the agreement brought forward as it is, as a discussion item for the council. Things can be returned for approval, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Amendment.
Anyway, thank you. Not amendment, because that suggests we're just going to put something out and change it, but we can have the initial discussion on it and then bring it back for its actual approval. And that's where I felt we could have acted maybe a little bit differently. And so again, I just wanted to clarify that even right now, I'd prefer you not bring an incomplete document to the council. But what I would like is for the council as a whole to be able to hear an update and offer a majority on guidance on how to treat this moving forward. It gives the chief a complete opportunity to let us know his challenges with staffing and how to actually roll out this MOU, the actual practicality of it, and the entire council gets to hear it.
Definitely, and we definitely need to be able to read that document. Todd?
Quick things. One, if I remember correctly, the MOU had something written in it regarding staffing for the police department, because Cloverdale is notorious for always having short officers. They're always short somebody, because, you know, with 13, I believe we have 13 right now, at max. If you're at max, it hasn't been in the past like decades. So if we waited for staffing, we would never get this to pass. And the second thing, I really want you guys all to remember that when the marijuana was passed to come into our town, that some of that tax base was put forth for education regarding drugs, and that was almost earmarked for things like this, and it was used on other items that I won't mention, but we know that it wasn't used on education. And so I would hope in the future that money like that is used for things that will educate the children regarding drugs and drug use in our town, since we have like 75% of our kids have tried drugs in our middle and high school.
Okay, so is there any other comment we need to open to the public for comments? Irene?
Currently, there are no hands raised, Chair, for this item.
Thank you. So I understand that, David, you have clear direction from the subcommittee at this moment. We're going to look into the legalities, and also would like to, for all of us, need to see what was the result of the conversation between Chief and ex-Superintendent Decker.
Madam Chair, we will prepare an agenda report for the first meeting in August. We'll bring it forward and certainly highlight where there's opportunities for policy input. And I just want to, reflect back on the minutes, because it does state in the minutes that Chief Ferguson can follow up with Supervisor Decker directly. And I think that's what was reflected of what was stated at the subcommittee and then prepare for final adoption and add delay language based on COVID-19 situation and commit to continue to work together so we can outline that that was part of the consideration that was made. Unfortunately, we were in this transition and we'll highlight that so that it's clear. But clearly outline the policy issues so that the council has a full picture of the issues so they can provide feedback or direction on the MOU.
Thank you. All right. With no further discussion on this subject, do you have any update, Kevin?
No new projects to report. We are in receipt of the school board's request regarding Baumgartner, and that will be presented to the city council on August 12th, where the project will be reviewed at the council level. We received a number of comments from the planning commission, which will also be reviewed along with the school board's comments. Other than that, we haven't gotten any big projects in. We're just kind of still working on the same ones. That's pretty much the end of the report.
And I understand there is no comments on location of skate park. Is that so?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that's correct. No reportable updates right now. Thank you.
Okay. And I'll go ahead and open to the public for the last two items if there are any comments. Oh, Todd. Okay, so just a second, Todd. Irene, any public?
No public comment at this time.
Okay, so we close. Todd, go ahead, bring it back to subcommittee.
Just real quick, and I know that you guys have done the homework on this, and that's why I want to ask the question. The location of the skate park, what is the discussion behind the property behind the car wash? And I'm sure you guys have discussed it with the owner and as a possible location. And
I have no knowledge. That would be David and
David, Kevin, anyone that might know?
So Todd, to be quite honest with you, that's waiting on me. I asked to be kind of the liaison to go meet with that family and the individuals who manage that property. And I have, for lack of a better excuse, I've had to divert priorities elsewhere, but it is still something that we want to entertain. And there has been one other property location that I've had just a verbal acknowledgement with the landowner. It happens to be directly adjacent to Tanyen and Cloverdale Market on the boulevard, with Healdsburg Avenue being the major cross street there. And to say it's preliminary and high level is an understatement, but there is at least a desire to talk with me further on the subject.
Great, Jason, thank you. I'm just trying to find a solution to this problem so that.
I agree with you, Todd, and I realize it was by my own saying that I won't move this to council until we have an idea. And so, and I shouldn't word it like that. That makes me sound like I have the say over it. But I'm hesitant to openly approve from my vote bringing it to the council without at least having an option. And now I realize I'm the one holding that up. So acknowledged. Thank you for asking that very pointed question, and I'll try and get you an update by our next meeting.
And if you need help with the owners of that car wash or their representatives, let me know. I can always help you.
Thank you. I appreciate the partnership.
okay. Thank you. Information only memos.
None, Madam Chair.
Future agenda items. None for now. Anything we'll submit to you guys. Okay. And no pending items. So I would say good to the order. We will adjourn. Thank you very much. And let's go have dinner.
That's right. Have a good night, you guys.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.